Rebecca, thank you so much for joining. First off, it's incredible to see, what you all have built with DealMaker in such a short amount of time. So I want to say first, congrats on the platform and the progress that you all have made. But I want to start and kind of take a step back and talk about the inception story. Walk us through like what inspired you to create DealMaker and, even more so like how did your legal background play a role in shaping the company and the vision?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Malcolm. Happy to be here. This is exciting. I was a capital markets attorney by background, but don't hold that against me. I built DealMaker out of a pain point I saw where my clients were trying to get their businesses funded. And I'm watching these founders, and they're like sleeping on the storeroom floor and have no money to start their business. They're putting everything they have into these businesses, and then watching the process of fundraising was so broken and so cumbersome. And then I saw people getting taken advantage of at the end. And I said, there's got to be a better way to get ideas funded. And so out of that was born DealMaker. And what we do is help folks digitally advertise investing in something. So you can do that securely and compliantly in accordance with SEC guidelines, but you can make a fundraise selling something online, like selling a pair of sneakers. You can say, invest in my business and invest in my team, most recently, where we've seen a ton of pickup because sports as a category is just so exciting to fans to be able to meaningfully participate in the brands that they love. My vision is 5 years from now, you walk into a sports stadium, you get a pop up on your phone to invest in that team.
And so I want to dive deeper into the sports investing part of it because obviously you all cover various industries, but that's something, as you said, you've been diving deeper into recently as we've seen an uptick in sports as an asset class. So when did you kind of realize that fans could invest in teams and this can be actually like community powered and this can be something that could be implemented within the Dealmaker platform?
Yeah, it became clear to us that while the rise of fan ownership is a new model for sports investment in the US, it's actually not a new model globally. In fact, European leagues have proven it's a great model for building a passionate and loyal fan base. We got introduced to it through the Green Bay Packers, who we helped about 2 years ago raise 65 million from 146,000 fans. And through using our system, we were actually able to help them extend that offering very far beyond their local community, all the way up into different jurisdictions like Canada, where they have an even more loyal fan base now because you've got owners of that team globally, worldwide. So that was really, Malcolm, when it opened my eyes to say, wow, there's something here in what we're doing for businesses that really translates to fan ownership model in sports.
And then from like a high level perspective, what does that look like for a team or an organization that's looking to launch a campaign on Dealmaker? Like, kind of, can you walk us through the process so people have like a scope of what that looks like?
Yeah, we'll have people offering everything from what the Green Bay Packers did, a ceremonial stock certificate and an invitation to an annual general meeting. I just got mine in the last couple of weeks, very exciting, to offering, a real financial position like the Oakland Ballers outside of San Francisco. They watched a lot of their teams leave that jurisdiction, and the founders, who had founded multiple different businesses, said, we want to build something that's community owned, and the community actually gets an opportunity to put a director in place, have a seat at the table, and vote on major decisions, which you see a lot of the European leagues doing as well. So there's a variety of different models that teams can run and are running. There's a lot of excitement in college right now as well, as we're seeing those teams transition from being just athletic departments all the way to actually profitable revenue generating businesses that think about fan lifetime value in a very real way.
hmm you talked about the European model and how community funded teams are a little more bit more prominent over there. Do you see any challenges with bringing that model to the US and making that more mainstream? Like, are there any, I guess, regulatory or I guess structural challenges that can make that a little bit harder to kind of facilitate or make it more common here in the States as opposed to Europe?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest challenges we see is you've got a lot of high net worth folks that own teams already that don't want to have a different ownership structure come in. That's been broken down a little bit recently by private equity entering the stage, and we've got a bunch of folks there looking at this and saying, hey, this is a real way that we can complement our capital and bring a different source of capital that lets the fans get even more engaged than they are already. So that's definitely one challenge. League rules are another, but we're engaging with a lot of the larger leagues who are really excited about this as an opportunity. And it's really presented an opportunity for folks who aren't in leagues that have those kind of rules. A lot of the soccer leagues in North America are following Europe in that fan ownership model. We've got a few of those teams looking at this. And so, because it creates so much engagement with the fans, new and emerging leagues have an opportunity to use interesting structures like this to come up and grab their seat at the table and create that fan engagement in a way that the larger leagues maybe can't move as quickly.
hmm And then you talked a little bit earlier about some of the decisions that community funded teams or fans get to make when they're invested in the teams. What are some of the things outside of that that you think fans are interested in terms of impacting change within the team? Is like branding and game strategy? Do you see those kind of aspects playing a role in the decision making or the governance process for fans that are involved or invested in teams as well?
Typically, historically, what we've seen is it stays excuse away from making decisions about like how the team's going to play on field. That's very much got to stay with the folks that are charged with that to manage and run the team from day-to-day operation, and it skews more towards actual like inside information, meet and greets, jersey colors, how the team is operating. And so really getting to get under the hood in the business aspects of it, which can be quite exciting. Or sometimes it's simply more access. A lot of our businesses, they're online communities, they could be tech companies, or they could be social platforms. And the ownership structure gives them an additional tier to what people can get and involve that themselves with the business. And a lot of times that's what people are looking for today. We want people to own the brands they consume as they move through the world and have a deeper engagement with the brands they consume than just, passive viewership. And that's really the direction that we're seeing sports go in. If you look at when gambling came about on sports, that was really only about 8 years ago when you saw the legal decisions that made that legal on a state level. And so that took people from being a passive viewer of a game to now really engaging and learning a whole new level of stats about the game that they never previously tracked. And so that's been exciting. And we're really bringing as a third leg to the stool where you can actually have a different way to have financial involvement with the team as well.
hmm Uh, we talked about the community funded model being prominent in Europe, and that specifically happens a lot around soccer. I think soccer is the most prevalent example. Are there any other sports or even leagues that you've seen or think that are most primed for the community funded model? I mean, we're seeing obviously a lot happening around women's sports in this day and age, but are there like what are your thoughts on some of the other like sports or leagues that this could be perfect for?
You're right, Malcolm. We're having a lot of conversations with women's leagues. I think that is a huge area of growth. Like conservative estimates are going to be 40 to 60 billion in new capital created over the next 5 years in sports. And so there's a lot of different opportunities with women's leagues as one category, with college teams is another category where we think there's a huge, tremendous opportunity for growth, as well as new and up and coming leagues. There's a lot of new different niche sports that you're seeing. You've got curling, volleyball, different types of snow sports. All of those types of categories have to get their piece of the pie of the online viewership. And this is an exciting way that they can differentiate themselves in the model. There are probably 100 to 200 new leagues being created since 2022. That's hundreds of new leagues that need to be capitalized and need to take their percentage of the eyeballs in order for those leagues to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also one of the challenges might be fans understanding what their investment equals and having education around what that really looks like, what this asset entails and the responsibility as a stakeholder in this organization. Does Dealmaker, are you guys like doing anything around education or providing resources to fans so they understand kind of the nuances of their investment and their involvement within the organization?
Yes, definitely. That's a big piece of every offering. They're all, securities law guideline mandates, disclosure documents where people can review and understand really what they're getting involved in. That's a big component of getting people comfortable that they really want to get involved in an opportunity in the first place. It is exciting to be a part of something, but you do need to understand the metrics. That's one of the things we love about this ability we create for brands and their consumers to interact one to one is people really get to drive those decisions themselves. And they learn a lot in that process. It's not like going through a financial advisor where they're just kind of telling you what to do. You're really getting to drive those decisions yourself.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges with investing in sports, not necessarily challenges, but things that it makes different, that makes it different from investing in other asset classes, the emotional connection that fans have with the teams. How do you guys kind of navigate that aspect so you don't, it doesn't feel like the platform is coming off as like exploitative or taking advantage of fans? Like there's that emotional component plays a huge role in in how someone they're tied to the team and how they feel about the decisions being made, the performance on the field, et cetera. So how do you guys kind of navigate that aspect of it as well?
Yeah, under the rules, there's a cap on the amount people can invest. That's been really important in the way the system was designed so that people can't get so excited that they put in too much. You look at how a team like Green Bay did, and they basically sold everybody one share for $200 or $300. That was the cap that you could invest. And so they really wanted to have a wide range of people be able to have access, but they didn't want to have people get too excited that they went over the cap. I think that emotional aspect is really important because it changes the makeup of the team, not just for the team itself, but for the player as well. So I'd love to hear, you as an ex-athlete and you're so in the mix on sports, how do you see this ownership structure changing things from your perspective for the team as well as for the players?
Yeah, I think one of the things I've been super bullish on and interested in is athlete syndicates. So I think we're coming into an age, specifically speaking from an athlete standpoint, of athlete empowerment. Athletes want to build their own brands, their own empires, have ownership stakes, and I think we're seeing that start to trend upward a lot more. Not only on the men's side, but also on the women's side. A lot of women are starting their own venture funds and getting involved in ownership groups across different leagues and sports. And I think it's beautiful to see. And I think that syndicate model is especially unique and will play a huge role because it mimics the team setting. You have a group of athletes working towards a common goal, building something that they own, and creating a structure around that. So I think, from an athlete standpoint, especially when you're looking to transitioning into life after sports, we'll start to see those ownership groups really take shape. And then the connection with fans, athletes democratization of media, social media specifically, has created platforms where athletes are closer to fans. So being able to invest alongside your favorite athlete, I think is something that's really intriguing for fans and athletes and will create a deeper connection and bond going forward. So I see that syndicate model really playing a role in ownership groups going forward for athletes.
I
Yeah.
think that's so true. Yeah, I think we've seen a huge take up on that as athletes really lean into the power that they can have, not just lending their brand to something, but actually in order to create something that they truly believe in, they have a rabid fan base who's going to back them in those ventures and understands that not every venture may be successful and you disclose that, but you're there for the journey and you're there to participate in the ride.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you talked a lot about the Green Bay Packers model, but I want to hear about any other case studies that you guys have had on the platform or specific campaigns that you've been like, wow, we really got something here, and there's a really like high ceiling and potential for where this can go.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of new campaigns starting out, fresh new leagues, as well as fresh new teams. So those are on the upward slide, and we're excited to see how those potentially play out. What we've also seen in geo targeting communities around a localized brand works really, really well. And so we've done, many campaigns upward to the limit that the campaigns can max out at 75 million. So we've seen more of those campaigns this year than any other year in the category previously, because we're really getting the model down and we're really starting to see where people like a certain brand, how we can maximize on that, not just locally, but then say, a business is based in Austin, Texas, we can geo target that, and then we can replicate that in other jurisdictions around America that look similar. AI has given us huge opportunities as well to streamline and automate so much of the customization that we do on these campaigns anyway. So that's really exciting for us to just make this more cost effective and more mainstream.
hmm Are you all thinking about incorporating like blockchain technology? I mean, obviously, we had like this huge boom with like NFTs and fractional ownership, and a couple years ago, and it's kind of since died down a little bit. But I think there's something that NFTs kind of proved a model where you can kind of create this decentralized database and ledger that can show real ownership, and that's immutable. So is that something that you guys are looking at implementing within the platform or the technology for the long term?
Yeah, it's funny you ask, Malcolm, because I was just in Washington. I've been talking to the legislators a lot about the new exemptions that they're creating around that. And it is definitely something that we're considering. We're effectively accomplishing the same thing. When we give folks the ability to invest in a team, they can participate in perks that they get with respect to that team. We're auto issuing their shares, we're depositing them in the portal. So there's a lot of that structure that's in place already. But I do think, the new rules and blockchain are going to provide a tremendous opportunity for growth and really for us to build infrastructure that makes all of this more streamlined and easier, which ultimately is better for the fans and gives the teams a better cost of capital.
100%. Shifting a little bit, I want to talk about you as a founder because building something of this magnitude is extremely hard, time intensive, and all that jazz. But what's one thing that you've learned about yourself since starting this company, professionally?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, what I always tell young founders who are starting out, resilience is probably the most important thing. You're always going to have hard times in building a company, same as in playing sports. I played sports when I was younger, was a competitive skier as well. And you lose a lot, right? You don't win every shot, you don't do well every race. And so the most important thing is how you recover from that and recovering quickly and not letting the losses get you down. That's what allows you to build the momentum to create that velocity that you need to pull everyone around you to create something special. A lot of people would say it's incredibly ambitious to take the European model of fan ownership and bring it to America. And for us, that's really, every day we look at the numbers, we look at what the fans want and what the teams want. And if we think we have something that can create value for people, it doesn't really matter how ambitious it seems to us. We just have to break it up into small steps.
What advice would you give maybe a founder or even an organization on how to effectively raise capital? Like what would be your number one strategy or suggestion on how to do that in the most efficient manner?
My guidance is always to, I call it run multiple bets, right? You don't, every conversation that you have, I've done a lot of mergers and acquisitions and capital raising, it's not always going to be successful. So you always have to be pursuing multiple strategies. That's how you can create that escape velocity to getting things done quickly. So always have multiple opportunities. PE might be a really good way to go, but at the end of the day, you may decide that what they're creating in value, as a profit machine isn't quite right for that team, and you may want to pivot. So the more conversations that you can have, the more you can explore different opportunities and figure out which one is the right one.
I love it. And last couple questions before we wrap up. I think I know your answer to this next question, but I'm still going to ask it anyway. When you look at the future of sports as an asset class, what are you most excited about?
I'm most excited about getting the fans involved so that they can
Yeah.
share in some of the growth in this asset class that we are going to see over the next 5 years. It would be a huge opportunity for me to be able to say that I brought the fans to have a seat at the table to share, not just in creating the revenue, but in profiting from their own endeavors.
I love it. And then last question. Let's say 5 to 10 years from now, what does success mean for DealMaker?
Success means that, you walk into the grocery store, you pick up your favorite bag of chips, you scan a QR code, and you become an owner in that brand. You walk into your favorite sports stadium, you get a pop-up on your phone, not just to buy some new merch, but to own a piece of that team. We really want to have everybody own the assets that they move through life consuming so that they can be a part of things in a much bigger way, in a much more financially beneficial way. And part of doing that is normalizing conversations around investing and finance. And if that's our impact on the world, we think that's a very positive impact.
That's beautiful. Beautifully stated. Rebecca, this has been great, very insightful. Can you let everybody know where they can learn more about you as well as DealMaker?
Yeah, for sure. They can hit me up on LinkedIn or any Instagram, any of the platforms, and they can visit us at dealmaker.tech.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Malcolm.